Anything pulled from zoning?
The July 9th meeting of the Planning Commission of Ascension Parish will please come to order. Let the minutes show that all of the commissioners are present. Will you all please rise and join me in pledging allegiance to the flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the staff please introduce themselves?
Stacy Webb, Secretary for Planning and Development.
Lindsay Manda, Legal Counsel for Planning and Zoning.
Michael Petty, Senior Project Manager.
Ben Moran, planner.
Tim Ward, engineer.
Is it everybody? Okay. I have no general comments, so do I have a motion? Has everyone read the minutes, and are there any additions or corrections to the minutes of last meeting?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So approved. All right. Mr. Burgess?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to request indulgence of the commission to add something to the agenda. That would be a discussion about a moratorium for family partitions.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I think we need to have a roll call vote to add an item to the agenda.
This is under consent agenda? Is that what that is?
No, this is,
Just adding something to the
Mr. Burgess wants to add another item.
Okay,
So we'll just vote,
that's fine.
okay, coming down the road this way.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Thank
All
you.
right, we'll add this, we'll discuss the item at the, would you like to do it now, or would you like to do it at the end of the agenda?
Whenever you
Okay,
decide.
we'll go through the agenda first. And I just want to tell the audience that several items have been pulled from the agenda, so if it's one of the ones that you're waiting for, you won't have to wait for it. So in the zoning meeting, item 7A, the review for J. Kraus LLC property has been pulled. And item 10A, zoning for the new singular wireless tower has been pulled. And then on the planning agenda, item 9E has been pulled, Allen D. Gates property, family partition. And also item 10D, Dutchtown Metals has been pulled. Okay.
Mr. Chair, you may want to be specific on the AT&T tower, unless both of them were pulled.
Well, that's the only item
like-
that's actually been pulled, so I,
But which one? There were two
Oh.
towers.
okay.
AT&T
So it's
tower.
the zoning review ID 2400.14 of New Singular Wireless PCS LLC doing business as AT&T. So it's the one located at the west side of Roddy Road, approximately 1,200 feet south of Back Bayou Road, has been pulled. All right. So the first item is a public hearing to deny or approve the Glenbrook property, lots 1A1 through 1A5, Earls and Associates.
James Falgu, representing Earls and Associates, Mr. Dexter Fontenot, and the following family partition. I don't believe any comments were made. Asking the commission for approval.
Okay, does staff have a comment? I'd like to open a public hearing to discuss this. Is there anyone in the audience that has signed up to discuss this item? No? So, public hearing open and closed. Do I have a motion or a discussion on the commission?
I'll second.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. So the next one is item 9B, Peter Leota, property, lots D1B1 and D1B2, Earls and Associates.
Yes, sir. Representing Mrs. Sagona on the following family partition. No comments were made. Asking the commission for approval.
Staff have any comments?
Yes, this is a division on an existing private access servitude. So the recommendation is to approve it contingent on the servitude agreement being signed by all the current users of it.
And it-
Do we have discussion from the commission?
How many users, how many people access that road? I mean, how many partitions would access that?
I think it's 4 lots total.
4
Four or
lots?
5 lots total.
Okay.
Total, yeah. The road pretty much dead ends at that lot D1C.
Okay.
The total length of the servitude of, the private servitude passage isn't more than 500 feet, I think it is. 600 feet total.
Why do we need the other families on that road to sign a pre-dial servitude agreement
Yeah, and it's a private road. They have to agree to the maintenance of the road.
with any subdivision of any existing lot?
Anybody that has use of that that private servitude of passage has to agree to the division of the property.
So that hasn't even been started? Y'all
They-
haven't got
Yeah,
it?
they'll sign off on it.
Okay.
It's pretty much all family members around that area.
Okay.
Any other discussion here? I'd like to open a public hearing for discussion. Is anyone signed up to discuss this? So public hearing open, public hearing closed. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve.
Second.
Those,
What about the contingency?
Yeah, with the contingency that we get the signatures from all the people accessing the servitude.
Second that motion.
okay. I'll have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. So, next item is item C, Rip Duplessis subdivision, lots 6A and B, Earls and Associates.
Representing Ms. Rosemary Pamplin on the following family partition. Same issue with the last one. It is a private road, so all current users will have to agree to the servitude.
Staff comments?
No comments other than that the approval would be contingent on them getting all the signatures that they need.
Discussion?
I have one question. Is it a 40 or 50-foot servitude?
It's a 40-foot.
As I look at what is proposed, the rhetoric says 50, numeric 40, so you're saying it's a 40-foot. The packet that was provided to us.
Okay, yeah, it's
language
a
says
40-foot.
50,
Yeah.
and it's 40.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'd like to open a public hearing for anyone who has signed up to speak on this item. Is anyone? All right. Do I have a motion?
Can we close the public hearing?
Oh, public hearing closed. Do I have a motion or any more discussion?
Motion to approve contingent on acceptance of staff comments.
I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right. Item 9D, Tessie Bazil property lots 2A, 2B, and 2C, Quitma surveyors.
Good evening. Clint Quintmall, representing W.J. Quintmall Surveyors. Ask for planning commission approval on the Tessie Bazil family partition. We adjusted the L turnaround and increased the size. That was the only comment that I know of.
Any staff comment?
No, sir.
I'd like to open a public hearing for discussion of this. Has anyone signed up to speak about it? Right, and close the public hearing. Any more discussion here? Do I have a motion?
Was the L turnaround a contingent? Was it a variance from what was required? No, they just wanted to increase the size. I had put it in there, and they wanted it 60 feet instead of 45. Well, I'll move for approval.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 9E has been pulled. Item 9F, Brent Lambert and Sheila Ann Ballard, property lots 1, 2, and 3. Mr. Quitma.
Yes, at the last couple days here, we had some legal issues come up about the L-turn. And so the two parties need to work that out legally with their attorneys. And so I'd like to defer to next month, and so the attorneys can get together and we can adjust that how it needs to be adjusted. So I'm asking for a deferral till next month.
Okay. So in that case,
Do we need to take?
do we take any,
Lindsay?
I-
We have to,
Do we make a motion for that?
Okay.
or-
okay, I'll move that we defer it till next month.
Second.
those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 9G, Tyke McManus property lots 1, 2, and 3, McLennan Associates.
Ellen Jackson with McLean and Associates, representing Tyke McManus Family Partition, asking for your approval.
Does we have staff comment on this item?
The only comment is that, again, there's a private access servitude being used to access a property that the existing users will need to sign off on.
So we'll have to make a motion contingent on. Do we, I'd like to open a public hearing for discussion of this item. Is there anybody who has signed up? Okay.
Dale Morrow.
Good evening, members of the board. In January 1992, I bought my current home at 37611 Southwood Village Avenue and have resided at this location ever since. Since that time, my home has never flooded, even though water does get within 4 inches of entering my house, which is the highest water level ever recorded during this last major rain event about 1 month ago. My yard floods very often with very heavy rainfall, and ever so slowly gets worse with less and less rainfall amounts occurring. When we had received 8 inches of rainfall in 3 hours in the past, I have never experienced water rising as high and as quickly as it did in the last month's big rainfall occurrence. I live in the northern part of the parish, and I am still fighting floodwaters for the past 22 years to no avail, even trying to get assistance from Drainage Board personnel to help with the flooding situation. With the continuous construction of homes and condominiums in that part of the parish that is granted by the Planning and Zoning Commission, it is not a matter of if my home will flood, but rather when will my home flood. Since 1992, the subdivisions of quarters at Dutchtown, Woodgate, Waterford, Lake Somerset, Essen Terrace, Longwood, Silverstone, Seven Oaks, and 2 others between Interstate 10 and Highway 73 have been added to this part of the parish. All of the rainwater from each of these subdivisions drains into the Goodine drainage system, which is within 100 yards of my home. In the past, the parish has widened and cleaned out the drainage ditch that runs east and west from the old airport, which is now Lake Somerset and Essen Terrace subdivision, across Ticket to Plessis Road through my yard and into the Goodine drainage canal. Since 1992, the Goodine has never been dug out or widened at any time to help relieve water outflow that plagues this area. The bottleneck and width of the Goodine at Highway 621 and between Highway 621 and Highway 74 greatly hinders the water flowing south towards the Marvin Bro pumping station. On 6/27/14, Tyke McManus stopped me while I was cutting grass and handed me a document that he wanted me to sign. He then told me that he needed me to sign the document as soon as possible due to the fact that his parents had sold their house and needed to move out. He also said he needed the document signed before Monday morning so his parents could get a 911 address on this property. The document stated it was a legal contract to give him, Tyke, not his parents or daughter, passage to the servitude right away. My question to him was that he already had this servitude right of passage to this property, so why should he need me to sign it again? Again, he told me it was for his parents to get a 911 address. He never mentioned anything about the daughter's property. On 6/29/14, he asked me if I signed the document, and I told him that I would not sign it until I found out exactly what it legally pertained to me. He gave me the name of the land surveyor, McLean and Associates, which I tracked down on 7/1/14 and had a conversation with. The spokesperson for the land survey advised me that the document was needed to give his parents and daughter right of passage to the servitude for the addition of the new dwellings to be added. Mr. Leo Lambert originally built Southwood Village.
Sir, I'm sorry. You know, and I just want to tell everybody, there's a 3-minute limit to
Okay.
the speak, and I'll let you finish up if you can finish up real quickly there.
Okay, my question to the board is, If the property can be elevated and homeowners continue to build and development keeps happening, what is gonna happen to my property? Am I just liable and gonna flood eventually and nothing can be done about it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there another speaker on this subject?
Gladys McManus.
Gladys McManus, Tyke McManus is my son, and all we're asking for is the right-of-way to build a home by him on the property. That's all we're asking. It does not flood over there. He never did flood from day one. So that's all we're asking, is to give us the right-of-way, and Dale is the only one that would not sign. Half the road is already Tyke's property, but I know it's a servitude there somewhere. But his land has been surveyed. We have had it surveyed, and half the road to Dale's house does belong to Tyke. And he doesn't want to give us 70-year-old parents to build back there on our son's property. One house. And that's all I have to say.
Thank
I
you.
do ask y'all to please give us the right to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? All right.
Just want to get some clarification on this. If we recommend approval contingent upon that servitude agreement being signed and it's not signed, then the partition won't take place. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So Mr. Morrow does have the power to stop the partition.
When a private servitude of passage is established on a piece of property, it is dedicated to whatever tracts that private access servitude is meant to provide access to. And so the pre-dial servitude agreement is the instrument that allows for further divisions off that private access servitude, but it gives everyone who has access, who ultimately is responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of that access, to be able to chime in and say whether or not they agree to adding additional, tracts of land off that servitude.
Right.
And so, yes, I mean, if the instrument can't be executed, then, we would require that in order to be able to approve the division of property.
Okay.
Where exactly is the servitude, the 30-foot servitude that you're referring to? Is it on lots, does it go through lots, the proposed lots 1, 2, and 3?
It starts from Southwood Village and it extends to the end of Tyke's property. So it's 30 on either side.
Yeah, if you look at the existing 60-foot right-of-way on Southwood Village Avenue, you'll see on the plat there's some dashed lines that extend from that 60-foot right-of-way that's called out on the plat, existing 60-foot servitude of passage. It's that dashed line that extends out and kind of clips into lot B12 at the end there. That's actually the existing private access servitude.
Do you see it?
But basically, regardless of what we do, even if we do the division, it still can't take place without the contingency of.
You could choose to approve contingent upon the execution of the pre-dial servitude agreement, which is what, as staff, we are recommending. There's a lot of things that would need to take place for this family partition to be official and approved, and one of those things is the acts of donation documents. And, we've actually had occasions where those never get done, and so, it may be approved tonight, but it never becomes official and final. And So this would just be one of those kinds of things that if it was never complete, then the family partition would never be final and the lots would never be created.
Unless there was some other access, some other way to access the lot.
True, if there
You get
was-
access through one lot to the other two and with a private road or something.
That's correct.
So they could reconfigure it on their existing 5 acres. They could reconfigure it to bypass his half of that 60-foot right-of-way.
The-
Is that right?
No.
No,
You
the-
could not do that?
No, I mean, any additional lots on that access servitude would require anyone who's a part of that servitude that their lots access it. No matter if it's done before his lot or not, he's still a user of that access servitude, and so it would still require him to sign that pre-dial servitude agreement. And then this property does not have access to any other road or the ability to create any other access.
So this piece of property is essentially landlocked pending one person's decision as to whether or not to sign this pre-dial servitude agreement?
It was created through the establishment of that private access servitude to give that one tract of land access,
And they have that.
and they have that.
So that's where I see this 30-foot coming off of Southwood Village Avenue. They have access at that point where it has the point of beginning.
Yeah, that's their access.
So why couldn't they just kind of make a road off of there and head north? Make a road and have their own little,
They would still be within the 60-foot.
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then that gets into the conversation we had last month, where you can't have a private access servitude off of another private access servitude.
You're right. That's right. The Southwood Village is not, it just ends. It conveniently ends right there where the private access servitude begins.
Well, the end of pavement actually ends within the private access servitude. The public right-of-way ends before the property begins. It ends at the property line. So you would only be able to access off of the public right-of-way, the little 30-foot or whatever the length is, piece of asphalt is actually within the private access servitude.
What is the gravel road, there's a 12-foot gravel road, is that within the public, or the servitude?
No, what, you're talking about as it extends up into what is proposed to be Lot 1,
Yeah.
that would not fall under the access servitude. That would be as if, I mean, it is a driveway. I mean, it comes off the access servitude and gets access to that.
And they
The-
can't use that to access the 2 lots in the back?
We tried it.
That would still require you to go through the private access servitude.
Same thing as
Um,
I mean, that seems like a lot of power to stop someone to do this, with one person not wanting to sign the servitude agreement, which is well within his rights, Mr. Morrow's rights, but, I mean, there's no data collected to prove whether or not it would flood someone. I mean, you're not telling anyone how much fill you're gonna put on the property, and I mean, it's like we're kind of,
a person could choose not to for no reason whatsoever. There's, I
Yeah,
mean,
you're right.
that-
That's what I'm saying. It's well within
that's
Mr.
the,
Roy's rights, but-
I mean, that's the situation when you have, private development that it occurs off of private access servitudes. There's no public road frontage in this situation.
but as far as we're concerned, in my opinion, I mean, it conforms with everything that's in the LDC.
You
as
could,
far as I'm
you could
concerned.
choose to approve it.
Yeah, I mean, I
Contingent
feel like
upon
it-
the execution of the agreement, because it does meet the requirements of what a family partition creation.
Of what we're in charge
yes,
of.
that is
Right.
correct.
Yeah.
I have a question, Mr. Morrow. Under what circumstances would you agree to sign?
Mr. Morrow?
Under what circumstances would you agree to sign?
I didn't agree to sign.
Under what circumstances would you agree? Would you consider signing
My
in
house
a-
is fixing to flood with rainfall. I mean, any more additions to any subdivision, any structure will cause the water to rise.
What if the structure was built on piers so that it didn't change the ground level at all?
Well, in the back We
At-
have been through a planning and zoning commission board and denied Leo Lambert right to build a home 200 yards away.
As a planning commission, we can't dictate how the homes could be
Means
constructed.
about- right.
Or is
And
the public hearing closed or not? Is public hearing over?
No, it's still open.
No, I was just concerned if there was something amenable to you that you would accept and say, under these circumstances, I would agree. That's really what my question.
Any new construction will hamper it will promote the flooding of my home. That's what I'm trying not to happen for my house. Since 1992, look at the subdivision that has grown between Airline Highway and Interstate 10 along Highway 73. All of this water drains through the Goudin. The Goudin is the main structure that channels the water away from my home. And the addition to any structure on any piece of property that drains into the Goudin, my house will flood eventually. My home will flood.
I have another question for staff. If this house couldn't be built without the family partition, I mean, without partitioning the property?
that's not exactly true. So we have a provision in the Land Development Code where an immediate family member could place an addition, the landowner can place an additional residence on a piece of property as long as it's for an immediate family member. And so that's parent, grandparent, child, grandchild, as long as it's not exceeding the density. And in this case, an additional structure on a 5-acre piece of land would not do that.
But the
So
bank
it-
might have a problem with that.
But
Right.
not knowing the situation of whatever financing might need to be taking place or whatever, you would do that without any division of land.
All right. Is there any more discussion in the audience there? Ma'am? Oh, oh.
I'd like to know why on 5 acres of land, we're not planning on building right on the front of the property. We're planning on building on the back of the property. That does not flood, that will not put water on Dale. If there's anything that he wants us to do in order for him to put his signature on the piece of paper, we'll do it. As long as we're not giving him none of Tyke's property. That's all. We just want to build a house back there. We're getting old. It's time for us to do it. If we're going to do it at all. Whatever Dale wants, we'll do. If we need to pay him, we'll pay him. But we don't even pass in front of Dale's house. Dale's at the end of the road. We wouldn't even pass near his house to get there, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, I had one hand. Have you filled out a card? I would like him to be able to speak, so can you fill out a card to say who you? And just state, your hand in your card, and then you can just state who you are.
My name is Henry Pine. I own 3 tracts of land that run south of Southwood Village that also share the servitude there. And that my driveway comes in going south directly across from where the access to this property they plan to build on. My comment is, this land is clear land, so I don't understand what putting one house on it would have a major impact on the drainage. The water has always come up on the Southwood Village here ever since, I've been there since '94. And the water still comes up on there. It was up a few weeks ago. But the fact is, no houses in this area here that's involved have ever flooded to my knowledge. My house does, I mean, water don't even come close, and it sits right on the Goodine. So I'm just challenging Mr. Morrow's comment of why the, adding one house to 5 acres of property would have a impact on the water level.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Aguilar?
Is this a public hearing? We in a
Yes.
public hearing? You don't have to fill out a card for a public hearing, comment period. But anyway, I just can't believe that you can't have a dual private servitude agreement between the landowners bypassing the gentleman's property. I'd like to have a comment from legal counsel on that, because there are dual private servitude agreements on numerous pieces of property all over the state. And I just can't believe that you can't do it. I think they can do another private servitude agreement with everybody else signing it, except for the gentleman that disagrees with it, and bypass his property completely with a new servitude agreement and go around his property. And that's just my comment. And
Thank you.
I know what he's gonna say, but I don't think our ordinances specifically exclude that from happening right now.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, at this point, I'm going to close this public hearing. And I just want commission discussion here, or anybody have anything to say?
I mean, that's
I think Mr. Moreau and the McManuses have to work this out
Yeah.
between them. And I'm ready to move for approval contingent upon the servitude agreement being signed.
I
This
just
is more
have
discussion.
one other question for staff. No matter what we do, we can approve it, but the servitude agreement still has to be worked out amongst the landowners.
And that's a document that's not a planning department document. I mean, that's, the same thing as.
We don't have any power to undo
Force
that
it.
document.
No, sir.
So I have a motion.
I'll second, yeah.
Okay, a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay,
Yeah, that was with the contingency, right?
Yes.
yes. All right, so, item 9H, Kurt Martinez property, lots 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, John Dunlap Plan and Surveying.
How y'all doing? My name's Cord Bradford, representing John Dunlap Land Surveying. We're requesting approval of a family partition for Mr. Martinez.
Staff comment on this item?
No comments on, we recommend approval.
Okay, I'm going to open a public comment, hearing for a comment on this item. Has anybody signed up? All right, so in that case, I'll close this public hearing. Do I have a motion or discussion?
No, I'll move for approval on this.
One question. When you have a family partition, 2 or more lots can go to the same person? They don't have to all go to different people?
To my recollection, on all the family partitions I've been involved in, we don't have a precedent where through the family partition, more than one lot goes to the same individual. And so that was what Ben and I were just discussing. They're creating a lot for the father, and then 2 lots, one for each of the sons, and then another lot for the 2 sons together.
So we're dividing into 5 lots for 2 people, basically, right? Or 3?
By
Three
splitting
Three
names.
people, yeah. Why wouldn't they just have 3 lots? Why?
I think Mr. Martinez is planning on selling one lot to another son that he has eventually. That's where the existing home is. He would like to build a new home on another lot. That would be lot 1 where he would like to build a new house.
Just so you, I guess for clarification's sake, even though this plat is creating 5 lots, 2 of the lots can be created through the simple division process. And so lots 1 and lots 2 can be created through the simple division process, even though this is all on the same plat. It's lots 3, 4, and 5 that are being created through the Family Partition Act. Of course, that's still a scenario where you have one lot going to one son, one lot going to another son, and then the third lot going to both sons combined, I guess a recommendation would be to take the one lot that's going to both sons combined and allow that lot to be the father's lot, and I guess that potentially could be a solution. But we do not have a precedent where more than one lot
Yeah.
goes to the same person that I'm aware of.
But there's nothing in the ordinance that would prohibit that for the family partition?
I don't believe it's that detailed
Okay.
or specific.
I thought we run into this before where
Yeah.
we found that it
I mean,
didn't.
just say that
Run into it
the
again.
whole idea behind the family partition is that you divide it in for your children, and each child has a lot and builds that, but that's not what this is.
Well, and the code defines who you can donate the property to. It doesn't necessarily, it's not specific enough to say that you can't, donate the same or more than one lot to the same person.
So theoretically, if I had two children and I have a large piece of property, I could divide it into 100 lots and give 50 of them to each child and not go through the subdivision process.
In mere theory, that is
Okay.
correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
That was our multiplication discussion last meeting,
D-
too. Same
does-
thing.
Does the family partition ordinance require that anyone live on any one of those lots?
No, it's not that specific.
Nor does it require any family member keep the lot.
That's right.
All right. So,
I had a motion for approval. on
well,
the-
I don't know if I
Yeah,
ever
but
opened a public hearing.
Public hearing.
So I'd like to open a public hearing. Do we have any comments on this one? I'd like to close it. And discussion?
I think the problem I see with this is I think it opens the door to what Mr. Sanji said, that we can establish a precedent whereby we approve it for giving multiple lots to the same child, then, and while in this instance, we're only talking about 3 lots, the person who comes in and wants to divide 10 lots amongst his 2 children, or 20 lots, or 50 lots, there's almost a precedent set, which I don't know, I don't think that's necessarily prohibited in the ordinance or in the family partition statute, but at the same time, I think it kind of violates the whole spirit of the family partition statute and what it's designed for. So I'm very leery about this as establishing that type of precedence on this.
Any other?
I'm glad we're discussing this tonight. I'm glad you added it to the agenda because it needs to be discussed
Yeah.
dearly. But,
Well, I mean, I think what they have petitioned for, they're following all the rules. I mean, I don't think we have a basis for denying it because it does follow the current ordinance. So I will move to approve.
Even though it tastes bad, I second.
yeah, I mean, just based on the precedent.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, 2, all right.
2 nays.
2 nays and how many yays? 3. All right, so then it passes. All right. Do you have the names? Mr. Burgess and,
No.
wait, who, oh, okay, all right.
Well, then 4 voted yes and 2 no, right?
Maury didn't. Does
I
Maury
didn't
count?
vote, I didn't vote.
He didn't
You're
give
right.
us a-
7 of us.
You're right, thank
Yeah.
you.
So 7 minus 1.
He was a better math major.
Right.
So it's 4-2.
All right,
Okay.
okay. All right, so, Mr. Burgess, this is where we'll add your agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a long discussion last month about family partitions and the mathematical probability of a piece of property being subdivided so many times under the current statute that it would create a subdivision without following any of the subdivision restrictions we put in place. And once again, we look at what was teed up for us tonight, for discussion tonight for family partitions, there were over 30 lots. So, a subdivision. And if you take 30 and divide it as many times as it could be divided, you're talking several hundred. So I would propose that we recommend to the council a 3-month moratorium on on approval of any family partitions until so that we have time for the planning group to come to us with recommendations on how we could recommend to the council what things need to be included or excluded in the family partition going forward. So that's what I'm throwing up for discussion tonight.
I would recommend to the council, rather than a moratorium, that we recommend that they study it and we continue as we are going along right now.
And I would counter that they tried to discuss it the other night and nothing happened. And that if we don't they're going to look to us. They put us in place to recommend things to them, and I would respectfully submit that we need to do that.
Although, even though we recommend a moratorium, if we do, they would still just discuss it, which they are doing. So I don't think they would call a moratorium. I think they would tweak the ordinance as it is. But anyway.
Okay. And I think they would turn it back
Right.
to us and say, you go tweak it, and I'm just saying now's the time.
Yeah.
So I
So-
throw it up for discussion.
So if we throw a
Okay, so-
moratorium and they deny it, then they'll put it back to us, and then we can maybe
Then
propose a
I'm thinking one way or the other, they're going to have to take some action.
Now,
And
what was discussed the other night? That was at strategic planning?
I think the subject came up. I'll let staff.
The item was on the strategic planning, strategic planning subcommittee on Monday night. Councilman Todd Lambert had been the one to add that item to the agenda. However, he was absent from Monday night's committee meeting. And so the chairman of the committee just distributed our family partition code as it's written to the other members of the committee and asked them to take it home, to look over it, to think of ways that it could be amended, and then to come back next month. And so no discussion was had and no action was taken on the item. It was pretty much over with about as fast as it began as far as an agenda item.
And I think all that we can do is request that they put it on their agenda. We can't put it on their agenda, I don't think.
Yeah, I would just recommend to the council that they consider a moratorium on
family
a 3-month moratorium to give us a chance to come up with a recommendation as to how we think it should be crafted.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Burgess. The concern we have is bypassing the requirements we just put in place for major subdivisions, or for subdivisions at all in general. And I agree. I think given some time, I don't know that it's, time is of the essence with respect to establishing family partitions. I think we all realize the value of that, and we all want that to continue in the parish. But there's this problem we'd like to have some time to look at and address. So I think 3 months is not going to be an onerous imposition on anybody wanting a family partition. They can wait for 3 months while we figure this out. If we figure it out before then, we can drop the or request that the moratorium be dropped. But let's make the recommendation. I agree.
So I have a motion. I think Mr. Burgess has a motion, and I think Mr.
And I'll
Chafifi
second, yeah.
has a second. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? So 6. All right, so let's see. Now we have a public hearing to approve or deny the following, that's been pulled. Public hearing to approve or deny the following preliminary plats. Item 10A, Sunshine Business Park Boulevard Extension. GWS Engineering.
Good evening. Brandon Acosta with GWS Engineering, representing KEAS Rental Properties, here tonight to ask for approval of Sunshine Business Park Boulevard Extension and here to answer any questions you or the public may have.
Just have staff comment first.
No, sir. It's just preliminary plat so that they can extend Business Park Boulevard and further develop off of it. I mean, we don't have any.
Are there any businesses in that park right now, operating?
There's the Comfort Inn along the corner of Highway 70 and Business Park, and then there's a USDA building is under construction, only two.
Okay. And what are the plans for the rest of it?
Right now, I think he's got a hotel, is looking for a lot along it, but it's just commercial.
Okay.
Commercial. That'll be two hotels, there's, like I said, a USDA building, and I'm not sure about the other two, but it's mixed-use zone, so commercial uses.
The existing hotel and the USDA building that's under construction is actually on the existing part of Sunshine Business Park, or Sunshine Park, Business Park Boulevard, or whatever the official name of the road is. This is basically just carving out an extension, a separate lot that would become the extension, and then the remaining part of the track.
All right.
I'd like to open a public hearing. Has anyone signed up? All right. I'd like to close the public hearing discussion here on the commission.
I move for approval.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, so item 10B, Manchac Shadows Subdivision, Benchmark Group LLC.
Good afternoon, Commission members. My name is Murray McCullough with Benchmark Group Engineering, 11328 Pennywood Avenue in Baton Rouge. Represent the developers for this particular project. This is a single-family residential development in RM zoning. The density is allowable is 3 units an acre. It is in accordance with the current, it's been designed in accordance with the current plan. Current ordinance in Ascension Parish. We've met all the requirements and addressed all the staff comments to the best of my knowledge, I believe, both for the planning and the drainage and the traffic. And so we've complied with all the ordinance, and we would respectfully request approval from this commission.
All right, staff, do you have comment on this subdivision?
In speaking to the layout and the subdivision ordinance and everything is met. I want to note that the Oakland Crossing is what they will be changing the name to. It's in here as Manchac Shadow, so it was advertised as Manchac Shadow, so it'll stay like that, but it will change to Oakland Crossing. We asked that they add a note on this plat somewhere saying that lots 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 will not have access to Oakland Crossing Boulevard, just to guarantee that those are accessed from the alley that goes in the rear of them. And I think that's been added, not on the copy I have, but not that big of a deal.
Well,
Number 10 just says,
Mr. Moran, the note's been added, but the fact that we're showing we are showing access alleyways to the rear of these lots, it is intention to have, to not have these lots access the main boulevard, but rather have rear access to the private servitudes of access along the rears. So they have their public road frontage required for the development of lots, but they're going to get their access and their driveways off the rear. And to that point, those have been shown on there.
Yeah, and we just are asking for a note to guarantee that they will not have driveways out on the boulevard.
And I'm stating that they will not have driveways out on the boulevard. I think the note's been added, but
which says all driveway access
I've
will
got
be
11
within
by
the
17
development.
copy. I don't see it, but I'm here stating publicly that they will not access the
All right,
boulevard.
so I'm going to open a public hearing on this, and if any speakers do come up, and I think they will, please note that there's a 3-minute limit to what you say, and there'll be a little beep that goes off, and I'm just asking you please to stop when the beep goes off. Okay, the first card.
Dr. Scott Kogler.
As she said, my name's Scott Kogler. I'm a resident of Oak Grove Estates, and I want to thank the Planning Commission for listening to some of our comments or questions regarding the new subdivision. If you look back behind me, anybody in Oak Grove Estates, if you want to raise your hand, I just want you to show we have a support of our neighborhood. And I'm just going to go over a few of the points that they have sent to me to try to cut down on the amount of time. First of all, this is a preliminary approval, as we know, and so there's more to be done with this. I tried to get into the website, look at the fine print, and you do a great job, posting everything, but you can't read them unless you have the documents, because they're shrunk too much. But, like any new subdivision around an old subdivision, there's usually 3 points of contention: drainage, sewage, and traffic. So I'm going to go over a few of the questions people had sent me. The drainage and wetland study concludes no problems with increased flow of water. How can we be sure that this is not going to be the case? How are we sure that this doesn't happen like in other parts of the parish where a new subdivision creates more drainage problems on an existing one? There's some notations of detention ponds. Some of us would like to know exactly what those mean and how they'll be used. Second point, sewage. How will the subdivision connect to a sanitary sewer system? Where will it be located? And that was not something I could see in any of the preliminary panels. And then if it does tie into an existing system, will it still be up to code with the health department recommendations? Third point of contention is probably one of our major ones. It's to do with traffic. We're a subdivision off of Jefferson Highway, right where it crosses Bayou Manchac, and it goes over the bridge, and then you have a curve in the road, and that's where it comes. Our main questions are, how long have they studied this? Have they studied it? It said in the on the website there was a traffic survey attached, but it was not to be seen on the website. So as a resident, I don't really know what the survey said because it wasn't there, or if it was even done. How will this impact increased traffic for us in the subdivision? Are there any statistics of accidents on the corner there from the past? We also want to make sure that there's no connection on Welsh Drive to the new subdivision plan. And I guess our main concern is if there is a new subdivision, it's almost impossible to get in and out of there in the morning and the afternoon now. What kind of plans would we have to correct those problems? If you can indulge me for one more minute.
Yes, sir.
I'll finish up a few points. It might save some time later on.
All right, thank you.
There's a few miscellaneous questions, and, some of the questions had to do with where the new houses will be near the power line servitude. The servitude 75 feet from the middle of the poles. Where will the setback be on the houses that'll be along that power line? And then there's where it circles really close to Welsh Drive. There's a lot of homes, that have a fence there now. Will the fence stay? And if not, we want to make sure there's, no connection between our existing subdivision and that one. Right now, there's a gate and it's locked. I guess that's all that I have. There'll be other people from my subdivision making comments, and I want to thank the board, the commission for listening to us. It's very important we make wise decisions for the future of Ascension Parish.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Stacy.
John Thayer.
John Thayer, I live on Oakwood right at Welsh, 18449 Oakwood, and my concerns are the traffic. I haven't seen the plot. I don't know how it's going to connect. Is it going to have just one exit? Can they exit through Maplewood? Are we going to put a light up down John Broussard? Can't put a light at 73 because of the bridge. We have lots of traffic through there now, and it's just, if you had, I think 96 homes, I think is what I was told. So we're talking 200 or 300 more cars, and that's just my main concern. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Felix Luttrell.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Dr. Kogler. I'd like to reiterate a couple of things. There's a common area right off Welsh Drive, shown on the plat or the drawing, and currently there is a fence across it. On the new drawing, it shows Welch Drive opening into that common area. We would like to request that that common area be closed to access from Welch Drive for obviously the possibilities that could develop down the road from that open access. The retention ponds, or excuse me, the detention ponds, another area that Dr. Kogler raised. They're an area to help control flooding. When there is flooding with the new subdivision, is this going to affect our current flood zone rating? Will this new subdivision affect our current subdivision, adjacent property owners with flooding? And will it affect our current flood zone rating? There is currently a fence that runs along all of the adjacent property lines to the new proposed subdivision. We would like to know if that fence is going to stay, if there's a new fence being put up. Will there be a partition between the current adjacent property owners that have lived there, a lot of us for 20, 28 years, and the new subdivision? Lastly, and I'm sure it won't, but there is a right-of-way for both the parish and energy, 75 feet on either side of those power lines. We would like to be assured that that stays like it is. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
John West.
Good afternoon, how y'all doing? Everybody else before me had similar concerns that I have. Just like to shed a little more light, right? So our subdivision is used as a cut-through, right? From people trying to avoid traffic on 42, which as we know, that's a busy intersection. We get a lot of traffic all hours of the night, right? So when you have young kids playing in the neighborhood, it's dangerous at times. There are some members in the subdivision that have disabled or family members with disabilities, so I believe that adds a little bit elevated risk for the increased traffic that's going to be seen in that area. So I don't know what the path forward is going to be here, but if this goes forward, I'd like to see it be, done so on a condition that infrastructure improvements be made on the existing roads so that there are more safeguards in place that'll limit traffic through the area. Ideally, speed bump stop signs, items like that. And then there's also a connection that connects our subdivision with that 42, that side over there on John Broussard. So another possibility to consider would be to closing that bridge there at John Broussard. So, because it's just, we are a, a private subdivision, just like the people that want to build here. They, it's not intended to be a thoroughfare like Highway 42 is, so people trying to go to Baton Rouge come through our subdivision. And so I would just like to, the board to consider infrastructure improvements. Stop signs, flashing lights, speed bumps in our subdivision, and possibly closing that bridge going to John Broussard. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kimberly West.
Wife to the person that was speaking formerly. I do have some echoes to the concerns. I have a son with special needs, visually impaired, and when we moved in 4 years ago, I watched before we moved in to look at the traffic I made the mistake of stopping when there was no stop sign, and I thought, boy, this is a place that needs a stop sign. And someone in our neighborhood has made many calls on my behalf and his and other people in the community. And I appreciate all that you have done, Rudy, to help keep our kids and our animals and our residents safe. But that was met with maybe a few more cops patrolling the area. We still have people running down 55 miles per hour or more at times, and that's a small street. It's a straightaway, but my driveway slants right down into the Oakland Drive, and it's a great concern of mine. My kids can't even ride their bikes without me being outside to watch them, really. So, and another concern of mine, when I try to get out of my subdivision on Oakland Drive, Jefferson Highway is so backed up in the mornings already. I have to wait. It takes me at least a half an hour just to get to Highland Road. If I go back and go left on Jefferson behind the Winn-Dixie and cut over on Perkins Road to meet Airline Highway, it's going to take me even longer. So we're already congested at that area. And may I might add, 55 miles per hour right at that bridge is another concern. There have been wrecks that I've seen. There's, you can barely see over the hump of the bridge, the top of the bridge there, and then you have to hightail it. And if you have a V4, you can't get out of there. Thank you for hearing my concern.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a question for, ma'am,
Ms. West?
Ms. Weiss. You mentioned a stop sign somewhere. Where would you suggest that?
Well,
Just out of curiosity.
at the corner of Oakwood and Oakland Drive, we have tried to get them to do something there.
Like a three-way stop is what you're asking?
When there was a traffic investigation, they made that, they did that around Easter time when a lot of families are out of town. We didn't get a lot of traffic. I was watching. I think they've done it a couple times since we've been in the subdivision, but it didn't warrant to their say-so a stop sign. I see it different. I see people running the stop sign at Oakwood Drive, but there is no stop sign at Oakland. I've seen many wrecks, or just about to happen right there, anyway.
So you're suggesting a stop sign at, a three-way at Oakwood and Oakland?
I
That-
think that would help,
Okay.
but
And Oakland is where the 55 is, 55 miles an hour is going on?
oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I might add, there is a stop sign down on Oakwood, but that doesn't stop anybody from the stop sign at Walsh and Oakwood and the stop sign at Cottonwood. It doesn't stop them from putting the pedal to the metal.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Stacy, are there any more? No more? I'll let the. Okay,
Sign
if you would
forms.
like, but please come up, sign a card, state your name.
I'm Flor Vickers, and I live at the subdivision almost from 91. My concern is water and sewage at that subdivision. At 9 o'clock, when everybody taking a bath, you can hardly get the water pressure in that subdivision. And the sewage, as Ascension Parish, all the sewage goes to the ditch. You're adding 93 more houses, you're talking about the mess. That's it, thank you.
I do not see what he's.
Good evening. My name's Charles Muntz. I'm I'm a resident at the Maplewood subdivision, which is just up from the proposed subdivision. I'm a licensed civil engineer in the state of Louisiana, and I've happened to review the documents you put on the website. A couple points I wanted to make. The main concern I see with this development is the flood zone. If you look at the current flood map, this is flood zone A. And I want to make sure I'm clear between flood zone A and flood zone AE. Flood zone A, there's actually no base flood elevation determined. So what that means, if you bear with me, is they don't actually know how high the flood waters are going to come up during the 100-year event. So they've never actually studied that in detail to get a good idea of what that elevation needs to be. The study that they do for flood zone A is relatively rough. So it's relatively, I'd say, routine study. There's not a whole lot of detail that goes into it. And they don't give you an elevation. They more or less draw lines on the map and say, this is where we think it's going to happen. And a lot of this development is in flood zone A, where there's quite some uncertainty as to what that elevation of the 100-year flood would be. So while I'm in the subdivision up from this proposed one, so I'm upstream, so I have less risk than the folks downstream in the bigger neighborhood in the back. That's, closer to Manchac Bayou, and between me and the bayou, they have a very large risk here if this development goes in, because what's going to happen is that backwater effect for this unknown elevation, when that 100-year flood comes in, or a flood close to it, what's going to happen is that water's going to push up into this development. We're not sure how. Remember, this is flood zone A, not AE, so there's no actual elevation. So what's going to happen is that's going to flood the people that are down from this elevation. And if this was flood zone AE, we could feel a little more comfortable that there was a certainty with what elevation that flood water would come. However, that's not the case. So being in the Maplewood subdivision, that backwater would have to work all the way back up through the people near the bayou in that subdivision with the big lots, through this new development and into our subdivision to affect us. However, I'm pretty concerned about the subdivisions that exist around there. So that's one point. Second point, the rational method was used here. You said in your report the rational method was used. It's in what's on the website. Trust me, I've read it in detail. Also, they talk about the low-impact development bayou swales. So these are things that are relatively easy to calculate. However, there's no detailed hydraulic model that was done for this impact. So while I greatly respect the work that was done, and I do have concern for the fact that a lot of this development is an existing Zone A. So having done similar work, and I absolutely respect the engineering work that was done here, but there should be a little bit of concern with regard to flooding, and we may want to pay closer attention and have a little more, I guess, aggressive study done here. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sarah Heck. I live at 18503 Oakwood Drive, which is right off of Oakland, so it would be right on the road between the proposed subdivision. My husband would be here, but he is putting our almost 2-year-old to bed. We moved into the neighborhood about a year ago. I think we represent a large population of younger people moving out of Baton Rouge Parish into Ascension for the smaller communities and the idea of safety, and our children can run free in the streets. So, again, I've been there about a year now, and we thought we had a long time to start petitioning for speed bumps. I've already put in a few emails to people for concerning that, because I am extremely concerned about the traffic with this neighborhood being proposed. I am about 4 houses down from the mentioned stop sign at Oakwood and Cottonwood, excuse me. And people, that's 4 houses with 2-acre lots. People are going 55 and 60 by the time they pass my house. I can hear them inside. I've seen my trash can hit. Our roads just were not built for this type of traffic. They're smaller, country-esque roads. We don't have sidewalks. So first of all, we're not built to accommodate the trucks it would need to build this neighborhood, nor the extra, 200 or so whatever cars that will be coming through once it is built. So again, the traffic I'm very concerned about. Speed speed bumps, I feel, are essential as our neighborhood stands right now, regardless of any additions. We need them now. Again, or secondly, the two entrances to our neighborhood, both coming through 42 when you come down John Broussard to Welsh, and also the front entrance, have very dangerous blind curves on them. Our front entrance off Oak Land from Old Jefferson, it has a large stable right there with however many acres, horses, and they always have tons of children out there and having lessons and things like that. So that is just one very high traffic area, and it is a very sharp, almost blind curve. And again, coming from John Broussard the other way. So I would just be concerned what would happen with the traffic there, with the amount of accidents. I guess that was it. And again, my neighbor couldn't be here tonight. She has two children, a 7 and a 2-year-old. So, you know, out and about, playing in the front yards. Our neighbors directly across the street have 5 children. They're all of school age, playing in the yard, and our catty corner neighbor have 3 children there as well. So we are a neighborhood full of kids who want to be able to utilize our neighborhood as it's meant to be. So I just ask that you put that into consideration. Again, very concerned about the traffic. Small roads weren't built for this, no sidewalks. I mean, we are all established people who moved here with the hopes of having that small country safe feel where our children can play outside. And it would be really, I feel, a huge detriment to our area and Ascension to take that away.
Thank you very much.
Could I ask a question of you, or maybe anyone in the subdivision? Is there a posted speed limit? I mean, obviously ignored, but what is?
It's 25.
25
Yes,
is
sir.
for all the streets there?
Yes, sir.
And people are flying through it?
It's clearly, it's very visible, very
Okay.
clear.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
All right.
No. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, the residents who are aware do,
Right.
but none of the cut-throughs.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Are there any more? Okay, I'm going to let one more speaker, 2 more, and then we'll close the public hearing.
My name is Cindy Steyer. I live on Cottonwood Drive in that Oak Grove Estates subdivision. We bought our property in 1996, so we've been there 18 years. First of all, thank you for posting the information about the public meeting and allowing us to speak and hearing some of our concerns, and also for posting the documents. I appreciate, having the documents, although I agree the resolution, as some made it a little difficult to kind of figure out some things. I'm going to try not to repeat some of what you've heard, except to say ditto on all of it, and add a few details on a few things. Overall, I'm just concerned about the density of this neighborhood. It's 39 acres, and they're proposing 90 lots. Maplewood Estates was 44 acres, and there's 117 lots. And if you look at aerial photography, old growth trees have come down from Maplewood, didn't leave a toothpick, and my 11-year-old pointed that out, that they named it Maplewood when there wasn't a tree left. Okay, now we have, and, I understand we need development, and we're happy to have neighbors and new neighbors come in, but building eave to eave is a big concern, and there's noise problems, traffic problems, all the addition, which we're just concerned about. Specifically on the materials posted, we do have a concern with the drainage study. There's a lot of information there and interesting ideas on the bioswales and reading about the detention ponds. But a question I have is, it talks about for the bioswales that they compared conditions to Harris County, Texas, which is around Houston, and among other things, climate and soil conditions were similar. My question is, I would like to know, I guess, what was used as a basis for the conclusion that the soils are similar. I'm just curious. Do they have the same percolation rate, infiltration rate, et cetera, clay content, organic content, et cetera? And also, they did some specific studies on 10-year and 100-year events. An inch of rain, and a 100-year event, I think, is 12 inches of rain. We've had that. We had Allison was a 100-year event in the year 2001. And those were modeled, it looked like, as singular events. And the drainage and the difference between pre and post construction. What happens, is, I guess my question is, what happens when we're saturated after multiple events back to back like we have right now? Next to our lot, no one has built, and trees have grown up and they're higher than us. And with one afternoon rain right now, with this place covered with trees, we are having water flying through our front yard, which is a bioswale. And that's in a few hours with just our afternoon showers that we're getting, our typical storms. So, again, I'd just like to be concerned a little bit more, just consider how they did the drainage study and the density. And I also do want to repeat, please no connection to Wells Drive. It's bad enough, as they said, going through Oakwood, and we don't want additional connections with additional drive-through.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, one more. There we go.
Good evening. My name's Andrea Alexander, and I'm actually a Maplewood Estates resident. I actually live a couple of lots down from Charles. And I bought that home a couple of years ago. Maplewood Estates, I believe, was established in 2008, and it's been under construction ever since. So it's already a little stressful, living in the midst of a construction zone. And I get a little stressed thinking about 90 more houses and how many more years we have to go with this new development coming up. But my main concern here tonight, and I do want to echo everything that's been said about the traffic. I can't imagine how Oakland Avenue can accommodate all of these new cars and the traffic. But I am an adjacent property owner, and my line, basically the entire length of one side of my lot, is going to be directly contiguous to the private access alley that services that first row of homes along Oakland. And specifically, I think Lot 15, 16, and 17 are adjacent to my lot, along with that particular private access alley or servitude. And then there is also the, I think, 30,000 square foot commons area with a detention pond right there along my property. And I'm just concerned, what sort of impact that it's going to have on that side of my lot. One of the reasons I bought the lot was because of the aesthetic character with these 4, 5, 6 different established shade trees along that line. It's the only shade I have. I'm sure it has an impact on my utility bill. But, it just adds some beauty and aesthetic value to my lot. And so with that private access alley right there, I'm imagining that the limbs extending over my side of the line are going to have to be lopped off. And the trees are very sparse. They're kind of sparse as it is, with the exception of one large oak at the back corner. And so I'm imagining that, once the parish or the developer has to trim the trees, they may as well come down, because they're not going to be it's going to be very unsightly. And so that really concerns me. I would like to request, and I just think it's reasonable to ask some kind of a, more of a buffer zone between our property lines and this new development, because I'm not really seeing anything, and I don't know what the legalities of that is, but I definitely would want to know, because I would like to preserve, whatever small, vegetative barrier. It's a great privacy screen for me and for some of the other residents as well. So those are some of the concerns that I have. I'm also wondering, is this going to be phased in? What part of the subdivision will they start construction with, the front end or the back end? What are the price points involved? Those sorts of questions. I do appreciate you posting the documents and the studies online, but I still have a lot of concerns and unanswered questions.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing at this time. And I just would like to ask the staff, is there any provision for a buffer zone in our statutes? Is it?
We require buffer yards between, I guess, when you have adjoining zones, so like commercial to residential or light industrial to residential, we require buffer yards. But in this scenario, you have residential, abutting residential, and there is no buffer yard requirement in that scenario.
I would like to ask you, Mr. McCullough, the wastewater treatment plant, where, are you tying into Maple Woods?
Yes, that's our proposal to tie into and expand the Maplewood treatment plant. So that's
Just
where.
kind
our
of set
sewage-
everybody at ease with one of the concerns. I mean, there's several valid
That
points.
answers
made.
that one easy.
Another thing is the traffic impact study wasn't included in our packet. I don't see it. I mean,
It was submitted.
what, it was? Okay.
Yes, it was submitted and reviewed.
'Cause I'll-
And let me, can I address that as rebuttal to some of the comments, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Is that okay, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman? Okay, thank you. The traffic impact study was submitted. The study shows, it was done by Neil Schaefer, it wasn't done by our firm, but it was done by Neil Schaefer. And the study shows that there's a minor impact at the Oakland Drive and Highway 73, that maybe a 15 or 20-second additional delay is what the study shows. Now, as far as going through Oak Grove subdivision, our study shows all the traffic going left and not going toward the folks that live, to the, that is what the traffic engineer told me on the way here today.
Please let the speaker speak and
Yeah,
don't
guys.
speak from the audience, please.
We'll sort it out.
That is what the traffic engineer told me on the phone on the way here today, was that for conservative, he showed all our traffic going to the left. But, and it showed a minor impact at the Oakland and 73 intersection.
I have a question about that. How can you make what did he use to make that determination, that traffic? I mean, I understand if there's somebody that works in Baton Rouge, they might come out of that proposed subdivision, turn left to go up to 73, but if you have to go back into Gonzales or back into Prairieville, I think most people would look at that light at 70, or at the stop sign at Oakland and 73 and say, well, I'm going to take the back roads out and see what I can do.
And the best answer I can,
I just would like to know.
the best
how you
answer I can give you, isn't that correct, Brian? Yes. The best answer I can give you is that, we found, is that his comment to me was that it was more conservative looking at the impact at that intersection right there.
Did it
He felt most
require,
people would turn.
did it require any kind of improvements to that intersection at
No,
73? No
he
turn
did-
lane or nothing?
He did a turn lane analysis for me today.
Really?
On here, and he told me it didn't warrant any turn lane right there.
I mean, it
Somebody
seems like
asked,
that would help with the left turn lane to kind of get people out of the way
that's,
at that intersection.
pardon me, that's what the traffic engineer told me on the phone on the way over here. He was out of town, that's why he's not here, but that was his comment to
I
me.
mean, I wonder if something like that would help kind of put people at ease with the traffic concerns at that intersection, because it's already a dangerous curve with a bridge that's hard to see over. I mean, I don't know what a turn lane would do. I mean, I understand that you pay for a study to get it done, but
And I'd like to address some of the drainage questions, because particularly the gentleman that said he was a registered engineer, that he is correct about one thing, it is Zone A. However, doesn't mean that there's not a calculated 100-year flood elevation on it. We obtained from the floodplain administrator the elevations of the two minor impacts of the floodplain, both in the middle of the property and at the rear of the property. And we have elevations on those as 18 and 19. And in fact, the 100-year flood elevation, and we've taken that into account, there's minor impact of the 100-year flood zone in the front and some impact to the 100-year flood in the rear, but that's going to be mitigated through field mitigation requirements in that rear property. As you can see, we have a pretty big buffer back there, and that will allow us to do that. We're not connecting with Welsh Drive. We're okay with not having a gate at the end of Welch to that common area. There was a question about density. The 3 units of the acre will allow us 117 lots. We only have 90. So just like the other subdivision that was less than the required density, we're also less than the, not required, but less than the allowable density. I don't know how technical you want to get, but my report, my drainage study was not done on the rationale method. It was done on the SCS method. My report simply states that the engineer who did that on Maplewood used the rationale method, and I used their hydrographs and incorporated them into my study so that it would, to imitate their design on their detention ponds, so that we would get a true picture of what's flowing from upstream downstream to us.
from
So
Maplewood.
I don't know if you wanted to get that technical, but since registered engineer supposedly brought that up, my study is on the SCF method. Their study was on the rationale, but I used their data and brought it into my study. I will address the low-impact development design if y'all would like, because I think that's important. I think that's something that's coming. I utilized the Harris County, Texas, low-impact development standards in this design because Houston, from a climatology standpoint, from a soil standpoint, everything about Houston, except for maybe size, is very similar in nature to what we have here in our area. The bioswales would be designed with engineered soil materials that would actually percolate through the engineered soil materials into an underdrain system. The purpose of the bioswales was to take the water and slow down the rate of runoff and allow us to slow down the impact on downstream properties for the increased runoff that will occur, and it's going to be mitigated through the bioswales and through the detention ponds. Okay, if you don't mind, let me look at my notes because there was a lot said. As far as Oak Grove subdivision on our easterly property line, no lots are adjacent to that subdivision. They're offset by the buffer of that energy servitude there. Not only that, we only have side. Nobody backs up to Maplewood subdivision on that adjacent property line. So there's a buffer line there. One other thing, Mr. Moran. Note number 10 on the plat on the bottom, I just wanted to bring that to your attention. If you look at it, it says that no lots from 5 through 10 will access the boulevard. So that note's been put on the plat.
Yeah, we don't have that.
No, that's what my
10
latest plat
says
says.
all driveway access will be within the development for us. That's just where it's at.
I'll be glad to leave you this one if you like, but it's, you have my word on that, so.
Okay.
Brian, would you like to address anything?
Address any comments anybody has. I represent the developers. We also developed Maplewood Estates, and we're just here to develop Oakland Crossing, and be glad to answer any questions. We try to accommodate as many people as possible in their comments prior to developing the subdivision, and I'll be glad to answer any of your questions now.
I'd like to ask two questions, one on traffic and one on drainage. On traffic, I think it's unrealistic, quite frankly, to expect that everybody that lives in that subdivision, when they leave to go to work in the morning, is going to go out to 73. I live in Dutchtown, and 73, I avoid 73 in Dutchtown every morning because of traffic, and I know it's that bad in the north side of the parish. Would y'all be willing to consider mitigation efforts going through Oak Grove subdivision to discourage those people that go through there from going through there, or at least slow them down, such as speed bumps through Oak Grove out into John Broussard, so that those people that go that way at least will be cautious going that way in the morning or in the afternoon coming home?
I think we can do everything that's required. We did a traffic study. It didn't warrant a left turning lane. They did a turn lane analysis. They analyzed putting a light at that intersection. I think that's more of a DOTD issue there. I think a light would actually be discouraged with the bridge being, you can't even see over the bridge more than 100 yards. When you top that bridge, it's less than maybe 600 feet, 500 feet till you get to the road. I think that would be, I think DOTD would discourage anything like that. As far as accommodating, I live in Maplewood Estates myself. I can tell you that 90% of the people from Maplewood, it's rare that I see a car pull out of Maplewood and turn right and go back towards John Broussard. I'm there every day, 2 to 3 times a day. I'm in and out of the subdivision. I can't say for a fact that everybody pulling out of this subdivision will turn left, but I can tell you that the majority of them will turn right. I think the majority of the people that live in Maplewood work in Baton Rouge. They pull out and they turn right and they go towards Baton Rouge, and they run into the traffic that the lady was. To go to Baton Rouge, you turn right on off Oakland on your
73.
Jefferson.
You turn left on Oakland to go to 73, turn right.
Turn left to go.
Yeah, I'm
towards-
talking about the people coming out, turn right on Oakland to go back, that have to go back to Gonzales or work in Prairieville.
Right. Like I said, I live in Maplewood Estates, and I can guarantee that 90% of the people that pull out of Maplewood Estates turn left. I rarely see a car that turns right. I can't guarantee that the cars that pull out of this subdivision won't turn right, but I can tell you it'll be less than 80% of them, I would assume. Like I said, I live right there, and I think most of the same people are going to take 73. I don't.
Brian, what standards are these, is a traffic impact study held to? What level of standard is that? I mean, there's a certain way it has to be conducted to make sure that,
I can assure you that it was done correctly. Neil Schaefer is one of they're the top traffic guys
I would agree with that.
in Baton Rouge or this surrounding area. I left the expertise to them. I can't answer that question.
It was, and I can't specifically answer, other than say I know it was done to the level of study that's required for this particular
With Ascension
development
Parish.
In accordance with the parish ordinance, yeah.
The traffic study was reviewed by Ascension Parish. Was that correct, Tim?
Yeah, and we had our traffic engineer also review it too.
And it was all.
Jason Taylor sent a few comments back, and I think the comments that he sent back, there was 3 comments about the traffic impact study, and I think they were all within the subdivision. One of them was the lots he didn't want fronting Oakland Crossing, which we addressed that.
The ones with the alleyway.
With the alley, yeah.
Just
Another
to
one
try
was
to-
something to do with the boulevard. He wanted the boulevard into the subdivision widened. We addressed that comment. And I can't recall what the other one was, but it was an internal subdivision response. There was no questions to the, no comments directly to the traffic impact study as far as something, an analysis that was not done correctly or anything like that, as far to my knowledge.
Right. I don't think you'd be here, or it would be a contingency on the comments from staff if it wasn't done.
Tim, a lot of questions were brought up about speed bumps, stop signs, et cetera. What is normally the way you get things like that done, especially if you ask and nothing happens? What's the recourse?
Well, basically, we talked to Jason Taylor, our traffic engineer, and there's a method to go through of to determine whether they're warranted or not. They don't want to just put them everywhere. Every time someone says they want a speed bump, it has to be analyzed on whether it is put in. So basically, we talked to Jason and get a determination from that.
Jason works for the parish?
Yes, Jason Taylor is our traffic engineer.
Same thing for stop signs?
Yes, there's analysis that goes through for stop signs.
I mean, people had some, 3 big points: drainage, sewage, and traffic. I mean, the sewage, I think, has been addressed satisfactorily. I mean, you're tying into an existing system that has the capacity for it. Drainage, I mean, I don't know what else can be said. Maybe you can kind of help put people at ease with the pre to post process.
Would you like me to address that?
I mean, we often have that as a point of contention.
Well, what we did on our drainage study there's obviously an increase of flow. There's no question about it, flow rate from the impervious surfaces, the roads and the houses that would be there. But we've put things in place like the bioswales, like the detention ponds in place that will mitigate that, and it will control the flow out of there to downstream properties to pre-development conditions or less. In some instances, we had 3 different outfall points on this particular
That's what I was
property.
gonna ask
And each one of them, the pre-development flow or the post-development flow rate has been mitigated to at least at or less than pre-development conditions at each of the 3 points.
It cannot exceed that. Was that on the
It
northern
cannot.
side of your property, I guess?
That was on the eastern side of our property, I
Well,
believe.
my north side, yes, on the eastern side.
Yeah.
So it was all hidden that way, so there were 3 outfalls,
Yeah.
basically small ditches that went.
And I'm
that way.
sorry, there's one in the north, one in the middle, and one on the south flowing toward the east.
And you calculate what kind of water runoff is coming off of that
Yes, sir.
field.
That's correct.
And you cannot exceed that.
That's correct.
You slow it down
That's
with,
Ascension Parish.
detention, bioswales, whatever it may be.
Yes,
to
sir.
Make sure that you can't exceed that.
That's correct.
And we all have to trust that the parish make sure that that's not going to happen. There is not going to be increased runoff. Well,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
With that, I would like to just summarize and say thank you all for allowing us to present this to you. We appreciate it. Hope we've addressed your comments. We can address any other questions. Just to say that we have complied with the ordinance. In fact, our density is less than allowable with the ordinance. We've complied with the design guidelines of the new ordinance. We've done the traffic study and the drainage study, and those comply with the ordinance. Now, obviously, we got to go through it again when we go through construction plans, but we would respectfully request your approval, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, do we have more discussion among us or a motion of some sort?
it did say the drainage impact study contains significant comments. Staff, did that get addressed?
I'm sorry, what was that again?
It said that the drainage impact study contains significant comments. I feel like that's been addressed. Is that true?
Yes, those have
So that's all
been
taken care of.
addressed. I have a couple comments on, they're just things I'll want noted on the plans, but other than that, they're all addressed. We will be looking at that closer, when the construction plans come in, but at this stage of the game, they're all satisfactory.
This is using the new subdivision requirements with sidewalks and landscaping.
Tim, when you look at the construction drawings, would you be willing to talk to some people from the subdivision to explain why the drainage will work? I'm not asking you to talk to 500 of them, just a representation.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
they can report back.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yep.
Okay.
I agree with Josh that I think, although there is concern about drainage and sewerage too, I think those will ultimately be addressed. I think the traffic, I think more people spoke about traffic than anything, and it seems to be only indirectly related to the subdivision development. The concern is that this new subdivision will result in even more traffic bypassing, going down, what's the name of the street? It's
John Broussard?
John Broussard Road to bypass the traffic on Old Jefferson Highway. And I would suggest that that is, we can't require, I don't believe we can require this developer in connection with his plans for this development to do anything on Oak, in your Oak Grove Estates subdivision. But I think we need to talk about doing something in Oak Grove Estates subdivision to dissuade people from using that as a bypass. Who's the council person for that area? Chris is? We need to talk to Chris, I think. Certainly you need to talk to Chris. I'll talk to Chris about doing something about I'm not sure what we can do. Something, it may not be by, as Tim suggested, by the traffic study, may not be justified by a traffic study alone, but there are other reasons to do things like that. Either speed bumps or stop signs or something else to dissuade people from going in that direction. That doesn't address the problem between at Oakland Drive and Old Jefferson Highway. That is going to continue to be a problem, and this will probably, this will certainly add some traffic, at least to that. Maybe not a real significant amount at that point, but it seems to be already a problem for people trying to get out to Old Jefferson Highway on Oakland Drive. But a lot of the people tonight talked about their concerns about kids in the neighborhood, traffic going through, flying through that area. That sounds like a problem, but an unrelated necessarily to this development. What do you want to say, Matt?
No, I would agree. I think we need to have the parish look at the Oak Grove subdivision and the potential for people using that as a thoroughfare and a cut-through and finding ways to slow people down there to make it safe for the residents in there. I tend to agree with you, too. I'm not sure how it relates to this current subdivision, but I can see that being a
the concern,
potential.
I'm sure, is that
Yeah.
is that these 90 additional vehicles or more, will, some of them, some percentage of them will turn right, regardless of what the traffic study said. Some will turn right, want to go down John Broussard Road to avoid Old Jefferson Highway, and that will happen.
And I
We
think,
don't know, I mean, the traffic study may not be
well,
able to
the traffic
suggest.
study deals with volume,
Right.
not behavior.
Right,
And
exactly.
the issue we
Yes,
have that's
that's
been
right.
brought up is behavior, and it's behavior of
That's right.
drivers who don't pay attention to 25-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Right.
So
Mhm.
I think that's what we need to ask Jason is, we have bad behavior, how do we slow down bad behavior?
Sounds like rally Councilman Lohr and get speed bumps and stop sign. I mean, that stop sign looks like it would help, speed bumps on that
You
road.
Yeah, the
think?
problem with speed bumps is, people speed up between the speed bumps.
Burn the gas.
So it doesn't always solve the problem.
Yeah.
If they're close enough together, I guess it does, and then it becomes a real aggravation for the people that live on the street.
Right.
But there have to be other,
Well, they have 3 or 4 on Tiki Duplessis Road that slow people down.
yeah, it does work.
Yeah, I
I
know.
heard that coming out.
But statistically, I think it shows that people speed up between the speed bumps
Mhm.
to make up for the time they've got to stop at the speed
Burn the
bump. So
gas.
it doesn't solve all the problems, but it helps probably.
Well, could we have Jason come to a meeting to talk about how we change people's behavior? Well, this would be a good example, but I know we have others in the parish. What are options?
I can talk to him about it.
Yeah,
and see
just ask him to
what,
come. We don't bite.
All right, so,
So,
do we have further?
We have a hand down on
Okay,
it.
I had closed the public hearing, so I'll have to reopen the public hearing for you to speak. So I'll,
Right, can we have one more at least? I want to hear from Rudy. I know he has something to say.
okay.
Yeah, good.
I'll reopen the public hearing for just a few more minutes, and if you hand in your card.
My name is Clyde Tucker. I'm a resident of Oak Grove Estates, and I live on Oakland Drive. I'm also a certified residential real estate appraiser, and I travel back and forth a pretty good bit. And what we're doing with this additional subdivision is changing the demographics right there. Nobody's addressed the what I feel is going to be a decline in property values for the acreage holders in Oak Grove Estates. And I think that's something that needs to be considered by the commission. And the going in and out of, everybody, we call it situs. It's where a property is that gives it value, location. The ease of getting in and out of a subdivision has a lot to do with the value. And I don't want to disagree with you, but I'm not agreeing with you, because I go in and out of there all day, every day, 7 days a week. And we've got a negative impact right there. So, I mean, that's, as far as the traffic situation, I think we're going to change Oak Grove Estates, or Oakland Drive, to Highway 42 North. Because it's, I would invite y'all to come and sit in my driveway in the morning and hear the people just, I have a son with special needs also. And you wouldn't want your kid out there. In fact, I'm worried about it when I'm cutting the grass out there and get next to the street. But anyway, that's from an appraiser standpoint, you need to consider the impact of the houses that are already there, because you're changing the demographics.
Anything else? That's it. Thank you. All right, in that case, I'm reclosing the public hearing.
One comment about that, I'm not sure I agree with changing the demographics. One of the reasons we made the changes we did to the new subdivision, major subdivision regulations, was to increase the aesthetics and the feel for the newly developed subdivision. This meets all our requirements with sidewalks and green space and trees and other things. We would hope that it would be a very nice development, and then that in fact potentially would add value or would be a more valuable use of the piece of property than might otherwise have been had we not made those changes to the regulations. So that was one of the reasons we did what we did. We felt like developers needed to do more in Ascension Parish to create developments that would be more valuable and more pleasing to the area.
Any other commission comments?
Well, can we explain for the benefit of everyone here, this is a preliminary plat. Can we explain the process? Staff, can you explain the process that we go through from approving a preliminary plat, for instance, to ultimately developing the subdivision?
So if the preliminary plat is approved this evening, that allows the developer and the associated engineers involved to proceed with the construction plans, all of the engineered elements as it relates to the infrastructure and lot layouts and grading and all those sorts of things. Those would be approved or reviewed, and comments made and addressed, and then ultimately approved at some point down the road by our engineering department. And at that point, they would be approved to go to construction. The construction activity would be monitored by our inspections group that would ensure that the project is being constructed according to the construction plans. And at some point when the project is substantially complete, we would do a final inspection. We would create a punch list. Those items would be addressed, and then we would then allow the engineering firm to come back to the commission to apply for the approval of a final plat of that development.
Okay, if we're going to make any requirements of this developer, do we have to make those requirements at this point?
Requirements such as
Well,
what?
for instance, if we were going to say, we believe this warrants a turning lane, for instance, regardless of what the traffic study said. I'm just as an example. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just using it as an example.
Tim, do you want to speak to that part?
Well, I guess a recommendation can be made, but we can't, I don't think they could, make the developer
Yeah, so
do
you're saying the
something that
developers
that's-
are complied currently with drainage, with the traffic study. His proposed development complies with the requirements of the parish with respect to the traffic study and the drainage study.
Yes, I would say that.
Well, I think the comments you made regarding no access of those lots right at the entrance were to make sure that that doesn't present a problem. But we can't really require this developer to do anything on Jefferson Highway or in Oak Grove subdivision. There might be things we would require depending on the outcome of the studies within the subdivision itself, but we can't require him to do anything outside of that.
Unless our studies showed that there was a significant impact that had to be taken care of.
Right. Like I said, I think the drainage study is going to probably work out. You're going to continue to look at that, make sure that everything's in compliance and that there's not going to be any impact based upon our current requirements, which might change.
Yes, and we might also make recommendations, and the developer may go along with that and say, yes, but we can't require anything more than our code requires.
The study, I guess, for traffic has been done. It's been complete, right?
Yeah.
And it hasn't shown that there's anything required through the traffic impact study. I think one good thing is that the Welsh Drive doesn't have access to it, and I've heard concerns of that having access. I mean, something's going to get developed here on this piece of property. I mean, it's, I mean, if I understand the concerns, but I mean, we hear it at every preliminary plat, people, the areas can't handle the infrastructure, and I mean, we wouldn't have any kind of development if we shut everybody down. If anything, it's what, about 25 lots less than what the density that's allowed, and that's one good thing that I can see, that this new subdivision regulations have kind of, I guess I don't know if the right word would be to say slow it down, I guess, but,
Well, I think, like
I
we
don't know,
said, I
just-
think Chris Lohr and the council have to take a hard look at what they can do to assuage the traffic problem in Oak Grove. I think something can be done. I'm not sure what that is, but it's not necessarily anything we can require of this developer at this time.
it sure seems like a turn lane would help, but I don't see where we could force.
Well, we could
think.
we could
I mean,
try.
maybe Chris Lohr could maybe,
You're talking
rally.
about a turning
but
lane onto
from Oakland onto Jefferson, like a left turn lane to kind of hold a little bit of storage there for people taking a left onto Jefferson and not back it up so
Yeah,
bad.
that's
But they're
I mean,
showing a
that's already
15-second.
without this subdivision. That's
Right.
already a problem.
And I've traveled that road a few times. Y'all said you guys
I
are showing
agree.
about a 15-second increase. I mean, I have to trust the traffic impact study, but I mean, I know there's a lot of traffic there, and Brian said, you're in and out of it every day.
Could we make sure our traffic guy looks at that again? Just logically, it
That's
doesn't seem
Yeah, right. Logically, it
correct.
seems like it.
If
but
everybody's leaving at
here-
the same time and you're backing people up.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Seemed like a
We can have a
turn
look
lane
at it.
there to hold storage would
Right.
make a lot of sense. and
Saying
not
that
be
this
cost
would result in
prohibitive.
an additional 15-second delay doesn't say what the problem already is at that intersection. Is that a failed intersection now?
Yeah, what is,
Yes,
Mr. McCullough, do you know what the grade is at the intersection? It could be what crosses it from a D to F or a C to D, who knows?
Like 42 and 73.
Yeah, it already may be a very poor intersection,
Yeah.
rated a very poor
I
intersection.
think one person asked how many crashes there were noted by DOTD, there was 2 crashes from a left-hand turn from Oakland
Really?
on to Jefferson since 2011.
No, and I think this is a question of storage on,
Jefferson.
no, on Oakland.
Brian, which way do you go when you leave? You take a left,
I turn left
and then you go.
every morning.
You take a right onto Jefferson or take a left
Take a
onto
left
Jefferson?
from Oakland to Jefferson every morning.
Really?
I think the question was more of if you add storage capacity on Oakland at 73, those people that are turning right don't have to wait for everybody to turn left.
Would you like
I'm
it
not
if,
sure I understand your question.
if we added it
If there's a turn lane at Oakland and
in Jefferson?
Old Jefferson
On
on Oakland,
Yes, sir.
that would allow people that want to turn right.
I totally agree. If a
Would you like
turning
it?
lane, if a turning lane was there, it would ease traffic there. From a development standpoint, the first thing we did when we looked at this property was, let's get a traffic study. If it says to put a
Right.
turning lane in or a red light, we can't afford it. We're not gonna do the development.
Right.
So that's the first thing we did. And that
make
showed that
sure
there
it's
was no
good.
impact or little impact and no requirement for turning lane or light.
Hmm.
So we moved forward with the preliminary plat and everything.
That helps with your feasibility as to whether or not you can do the development.
Exactly.
I
And
understand.
I feel we've done everything.
You've put your investment up front with that to figure that out.
That's correct.
I get that. Like I say, logically, no data behind the logic, just logically, it just seems like it would, they have the data saying it's not
But if we
required.
had impact fees, we probably could
Use a little bit of that money.
use some of that money to do an improvement like that. And that's
Talk to the
point of
chair
it.
of that committee.
Yeah,
All
we
right.
should.
So, well, let's try and move forward. Do we have,
All right, what we're saying is based on what has currently been submitted, we can't require this developer to do any
No,
more than he's done.
I agree, we can't.
But we may suggest to Chris and to the parish that they take a look at the problem that currently exists. And if that is already a bad intersection, if that's a failed intersection, for instance, this may not make it a lot worse, but if it's already failed, we've got to do something about it anyway. Just may not be anything we can require this developer to do.
How long is it for you to do something at 42? 20 years?
I didn't hear the question.
How long did it take to do something on 42?
so,
It's already taken 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should,
all right, so, do we have someone that'd like to?
Before you vote, can I make one statement, one comment?
it's a big crowd.
We've had, Okay, I have to open the public hearing again, okay? But we've been through it so many times. I'm gonna let one more statement, and that's it. Do you have to fill out a card?
I'll do that.
State who you are.
My name is Bubba Dugas. I live
If
in Oak Grove subdivision.
3 minutes.
Less than 3. Appreciate your time.
Right,
And
thank
don't begrudge these fellas the ability to make money. But imagine this room catches on fire. And that one door is where all of us have to go through. Yes. You get to go last. Now, are we all gonna make it in time? Probably, right? But let's build a new neighborhood right here. Not 90 cars, 180 cars. Building catches on fire, now all of us plus that 180 gotta leave. You're last. That's our problem in the neighborhood. Traffic will not bear that subdivision.
All right, thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, but I got a comment on that.
Okay.
You're talking about the difference between a room this size. I agree with the gentleman. If the whole area is, if there's a wildfire like they get out in California, he's right. One house is on fire, somebody needs to get out. That's not the case. It's just simply not the case. Fire protection is going to be able to get there. So that's a difference. Yeah, if the whole subdivision is burning at one time, you got an issue. The chances of that, very small.
All right. No, please, that's the end, public hearing. You've talked twice.
I know, but I'm
But
going to
it-
talk a third.
it's-
I just had an
Ma'am,
emergency
please.
medical team take me out. Do you know how long I had to sit at the light while I was sitting there having arrhythmia?
All right.
It doesn't matter what you have to say right now. What matters is we're established residents, sirs. And I am very upset about this. I have 2 young sons that I had to pray on my knees to make sure they lived through NICU. But let me tell you something. That study y'all did, you did it during Easter, for God's sake. Easter. How many residents are there at Easter?
Thank you,
That's all
ma'am.
I'm saying.
Okay.
We got a minute left. Can we just take a look at the traffic? That's all we're asking you to do. Do a good traffic study during peak time school runs. Let us see it. And they take turns left, they turn right. And that's a bad
We run into traffic, and every preliminary plat that we get, that is the biggest concern. The infrastructure in the parish is the biggest concern. These intersection improvements, we don't have money.
We need a different discussion about safety outside the subdivision.
Not amongst ourselves, though.
No,
I mean,
I
that's
mean,
not,
but I
that's
think-
not what we're gonna be tasked to do. I mean, what we're tasked to do is to make sure that they complain. We have our principles, but
I'd say it'd be worthy of a discuss, not for this subdivision, but for
Right.
traffic in general, places like this, like I asked. What are some options we have to slow down bad behavior?
Yeah.
we've heard the speed concerns and other developments on David Drive and McCrory, and we've heard it all in these areas, and I mean, we can't, this follows everything with the new subdivision regulations. This complies with everything.
Does the traffic study comply?
Well, the development will not be allowed to move forward unless they comply with the traffic study and what that traffic study.
Easter holiday, what's that tell them about traffic?
I'm not sure that the traffic engineer has a specific time that he has to conduct these traffic studies. I don't believe that he has to look at traffic flows. I'm not sure what Easter has to do with less people being home or more people.
Is that when Schaefer did the traffic study?
Out of control. I don't know. Everything that we're tasked to do, this subdivision, they've complied with the new subdivision regulations. They've done what we've asked them to do with the traffic impact study. They've done what we asked them to do with the drainage impact study. Our engineering has looked at it and approved it. I mean, I understand the concerns, but.
I think it's unfortunate Neil Schaefer's not here tonight. They have been here in the past.
They have.
And
does a
it
great
seems to
job.
be most of the issues that we're discussing have to do with traffic, and it's unfortunate they're not here to address questions that we might have about this study. I have questions about, please. I have questions about the intersection at Jefferson and well, the main intersection at Jefferson, as to whether that it is already an intersection that can't handle the current flow. So we would make that worse. And I think Neil Shaver should be able to address that. He should have addressed that in the traffic study. Tim, does that say anything about the current state of that intersection?
Yes, it does. I don't recall offhand what it says, but I know it is addressed in there.
And was the Schaefer study done at Easter?
I can't recall exactly when that is done.
And does the study, a study like that, look at traffic flow, or does it calculate it based on density? So it wouldn't matter what day they were there. I think as I understand it, the issue about stop sign and speed bumps had to do with Easter, not necessarily a traffic study.
I think people were talking about the volume of cars not being on the road if school's out for Easter.
Well, I understand. I'm saying that the traffic study should be calculated based on density of the surrounding area, whether there's a holiday or not. I mean, I don't know. I'm asking that question.
I believe they do have certain days that they can do them. When school is out during the summertime, that's not the time that they do these studies. But I can't say exactly what the criteria is.
I don't think they're necessarily doing a hard traffic count. I think they're
That's why I
probably
was
just doing a average
calculation.
trips per day, per house. You know, making some assumptions regarding the flow of traffic.
Yes, that would be how they develop, what is the future traffic. Now establishing what the existing traffic is, they would take existing counts on it.
According to the traffic impact study, the data was collected on Wednesday, April 23rd, 2014, and then other data was collected Wednesday, February 23rd, 2014.
All day.
Yeah, 7 to 8 a.m. and then 4:45 to 5:45 p.m. and then 7 to 8 a.m. on February 23rd and 5 to 6 p.m. On that same day. Those are the peak times.
That's what they found after 12-hour.
It sounds like the traffic is an issue we have to address, but it's not related to this subdivision.
It can't be.
It's related to other problems that we have in the area. So I want to move for approval of this preliminary plat.
Yeah, I have to agree, Gasper. I mean, we're not engineers. We have to trust that the mechanism in place to review these traffic impact studies that are required are working. I mean, it's whatever the delays would be.
So is that a second?
I'll second Gasper's motion.
All right. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Nay. Okay. Those one opposed. All right. So, all right.
Next agenda item.
I know.
Yeah, I know. Like to get to
All right. So we're going to take a 5-minute recess in this meeting to let everybody get out of here. Stacy, need to face out. Are we gonna sit? Okay, we're now reconvening the July 9th Planning Commission meeting for the Parish of Ascension. We are on item 10C, the Grove at Henderson Bayou, McGlynn Associates.
Hey, my name is Ross Berthelot. I'm the developer of the property. I'm the managing member of the Grove at Henderson Bayou LLC. Here today to seek your approval for a 90-lot subdivision on 30 acres at the corner of 933 and Henderson Bayou. We have submitted all of our information, traffic study and drainage to the parish. It's all been accepted by Jason Taylor and the drainage by Tim. The staff had a couple of comments. I'd like to have Ben explain their stance, and then I do have a counter argument to that stance related to lot 50. on the plat.
Okay, I'm just gonna read directly from this sheet. The lot 50 acreage is being utilized to generate the allowable number of units for the overall subdivision. However, lot 50 is not internally accessible. Staff believes that in order to achieve the depicted density, no lot should have access to external streets. If a lot is not part of the subdivision, should it count towards the allowable density? And in other words, the existing residence that you can barely see on lot 50 is gonna remain. And he's gonna develop the other 89 lots around it that will all be accessed from within the proposed streets. That one will continue to be accessed off of Highway 933. That allows him 30 acres, which means he can do 90 lots. And we feel that with that residence not functioning as a part of the subdivision, that acreage should be deducted from the net developable area, which would drop him down a lot.
Would it then not meet the density requirements?
If you take that half an acre or so out, then he's at 29 and a half acres, and he can only do 88 lots.
Versus 90?
Versus 90.
But
We
the
don't
lot
think-
50 counts as one of the lot 50 counts as one of the two lots that he's not going to be able to have?
What do you mean?
Well, it would just be 89 lots if you pull out 50, right?
It's gonna be 29 and a half, give or so, acres times 3 is gonna be 88 and a half lots that he's allowed.
But if lot 50 is removed, then he's only got 89 on the plat.
He can only do 88 on the plat,
So he's got one more than he can have.
Depending on if we round up or down.
round down.
Round down.
So if I may, may I address that?
I think so.
Can I turn this on? Do I press a button or anything?
Just stick your finger there and he'll.
There we go.
Huh.
Can I zoom it? Yeah, okay. So I bought this 30-acre tract on May 2nd. It had not been subdivided. There were two houses on it, one here and one here. This house here is the one that I want to retain and have it be placed on lot 50. It's been there 20-plus years. It's a two-bedroom house. It's a nice house, but it's got an existing driveway on 933, and I'd like to retain the character of that. The house fronts 933. The front of the house faces to 933. So I kind of had been going back and forth with Ricky and Ben about this. They are basing their stance on section 174041E of the parish's subdivision regulations, which states double frontage and reverse frontage lots should be avoided except where essential to provide separation of residential development from traffic arteries or to overcome specific disadvantages of topography or orientation. Okay. In addition, his question, let's see what he said. If a lot is not part of the subdivision, should it count towards the allowable density? The definition of subdivision in the UDC is a division of a lot, tract, or parcel of land into two or more lots, sites, or other division of land for the purpose, whether immediate or future, of sale or lease or of building development. So in this case, the tract that's being subdivided is a 30-acre tract. We're allowed 3 lots per acre based on the new code. That's 90 lots. That's what I'm trying to attain. So with regards to the staff's comments that they don't think it's in part of the subdivision, I think the definition of neighborhood is being confused with the definition of subdivision. It is part of a subdivision. It's a subdivision of 30 acres. They just happens to have a house that I'm trying to keep on it. And I want to retain its existing orientation to 933. So even within the section 17 that I spoke about earlier in your code, it allows for an exception based on orientation of the property. So I contend if I had to go and demolish the existing driveway that fronts 933, pour a new driveway out to the new road that I'm creating, you're going to be looking at the back of a house with a new driveway, and that entire function is probably going to cost me over $10,000 to do that for a house that's a 2-bedroom brick house that I believe retains rural character if I leave it the way it has been for 20 years, entering on Highway 933. So I feel we have a difference of opinion, but the definition of subdivision is exactly what we're proposing, regardless of where the driveway, enters.
What stops Lot 51 from now having access to the 933 or adding a little concrete to the end of the driveway and suddenly the whole subdivision has access to 933?
The notes on the plat, no other lot will access 933.
Okay. I don't personally have a problem with that. I think I agree with you, but I think the people who are going to look at buying lots 49 and 51 and 62 are going to wonder whether they're going to, I don't think it's going to be as appealing, for those people. That's your problem as a developer.
That's his problem, yeah.
And
But
and
I
if
don't
we could turn
personally
this
have any
back on
problem
real
with.
quick, I'll just show you what I'm talking about. This, right, you can see currently.
Yeah,
lot
we have a
50.
copy of it.
Okay. On lot 50, it's entering onto 933. We want to retain that. What I would do is the sidewalk's going to be on both sides of the streets.
Yeah.
We have all the common area. We've taken care of every other subdivision regulation. But basically, this neighbor on lot 50, they would enter from 933, but they would have in their backyard a fence or whatever they wanted to have to go to the sidewalk and to get to the common area in the subdivision. So I think it's kind of semantics that we're arguing here.
So that, he's going to maybe have, or that person's going to maybe have a wooden fence, let's say, where against the street,
No.
right behind the house?
It would be whatever the setbacks are required, based on.
It's going to look
on that.
strange.
Well, whatever that homeowner wants to do, if he wants a wooden fence, he can do that, but he will have access to the sidewalk that will be running along the new street, which happens to be his backyard. I contend it might look stranger to have the driveway completely turned around and have the front of the house be the back of the house.
Okay.
It just seems like what you're saying, it's kind of his problem. It does seem like a strange
Yeah.
setup. Are you, Mr. Berthelot, are you asking for like basically a variance?
No, there's no variance. I mean, the definition of subdivision allows what we're
Yes, right.
proposing.
So kind
Well,
of
it's
an
a variance
exception.
depending on
It's
how you
just a-
interpret.
It's just, yeah.
Exception, variance, or just,
Right.
I don't know.
He just wants to
I think one of
subdivide his land.
the precedents that we didn't want to set with this situation is, let's say that this, it's a 30-acre tract, and, Mr. Berthelot's correct. I mean, a subdivision of property is to take one piece of property and divide it into more than one. So let's say he wants to, subdivide the property and carve out more than a home and a lot, but let's say, he wants to retain a 5-acre tract by itself or a 10-acre tract by itself, then this starts to allow the precedent of, because it was 30 acres, I want 3 units per acre, and so that translates to, 90 lots, but I'm keeping one lot as a 5-acre tract or a 10-acre tract or whatever, and I'm increasing the density on the remaining piece of it. And so what we're saying is, if you took this single lot out of the equation, then in this particular case, he would not be able to achieve the density that he's trying to achieve, because you wouldn't be able to calculate density with that lot excluded to the 90 lots.
But moving the driveway wouldn't solve that problem.
Well, they're saying if I have the driveway oriented toward the internal street, they'll allow me to count it.
But you'd still have
Right.
the same.
You still have the same
Still the
problem.
same lot.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't agree with that. I think that all the other requirements for major subdivision are met here. I think you can come up with scenarios that are, I mean, if it were a wild scenario, we probably wouldn't look at it and not allow it. But this, for all intents and purposes, complies with our requirements. That's a little strangeness for the one lot.
That's just it. It's just a little strange, but that's.
But that's the developer's problem
Not our
ultimately.
Okay, well, I'm going to open this up for a public hearing.
Oh, yeah.
Is there anyone who would like to speak on this? Do we have any call?
Joey Blanchard.
Thank you. I'm Joey Blanchard, and I live at 16448 Henderson Bayou, which is the property that starts at the southwest corner on Lot 1 on your map and goes on to Lot 7.
Okay, thank you.
Start the clock.
All right.
Anyway, I came here with a couple of questions, only not complaints, because I didn't really understand the plat that was on the website. And during the recess, I did ask a couple of questions to the developer, and now it turned more into concerns, I guess. My property, at one time, this was all family land. The front section just got sold off for the subdivision, and it's basically all at the same elevation. I know that 1 through 7 is gonna have to be built up approximately 1.5 feet for flood stage, because my son's building behind me, and that's what he had to go up. So I see these 7 lots draining completely onto my lot in the future. And if, I know it's not y'all's problem, but in 1986, I moved out there and I built a huge carport, and unfortunately, I built it 8 to 9 feet away from the fence. This is a picture of that side and the fenced boundary for the new subdivision. So I was more concerned with how this drainage is gonna work out, and is there gonna be a ditch in this servitude that runs behind lots 1 through 13? And if not, I would really encourage maybe investigating that further. I was also wondering, I know a lot of subdivisions put private fence, you know, on their boundaries, and I'm being told there won't be any of that either. It just seems like, you know, 8 to 10 feet away from a structure that's used a lot. Maybe consider some kind of privacy fence. And then also in those concerns, based on the second concern from James Taylor, the transportation engineer for the parish. I don't know him, but his name's signed on here. He was a little concerned with fence lines on lots 54 and lots 1, which I believe 54 is really 57. I think that might be a misprint. That will impact the site distance from Pine View Drive for turning vehicles. And my driveway is on the left side of my lot also. So I would, based on his concerns, I would have a little bit of concern myself for my family pulling out. If there is a fence, they mentioned fences, but they're telling me they're not gonna have it coming down that side. That's it.
Thank you.
Kimberly Burett.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Burett. I live in Galvez Oaks, which is right off of Newman Nickens, which would be on the back side of the subdivision. Just reading through some of the papers, one of the questions I had is they had a fence line, that was also Jason Taylor's email. There's a fence line structure that's going to be at Newman Nickens and Highway 933 that may obstruct the view for those turning off of Newman Nickens, so I wanted to just make sure that that was being addressed. Also, because my subdivision is behind it, I was concerned about flooding and sewage. And then also, because the traffic concern is 90 homes, it's probably going to equal 90 to 180 extra cars. Henderson Valley is not a very good road, and it's very narrow, very bumpy. So I was concerned if the parish was going to do anything to help improve the road there. And then they already confirmed that there will be a single entryway on Henderson Bayou, which I was happy with, except for the one lot that'll have access to 933. So it was more questions and concerns, but no objection, and I'm very happy that it's not being rezoned for commercial. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank
Any more?
Any others?
All right. In that case, I'm going to close the public hearing. All right. Comments?
Yeah, maybe, Mr. Blanchard's concerns with him building up the piece of property and draining on his lot, that the parish is gonna make sure that, I don't know where he went, but, yeah, I mean, they're gonna make sure that that's gonna be met and taken care of. I mean, that's not, he can't dump the back of those lots onto your piece of property. They will have a swell ditch or whatever it takes to get it done. Yeah, as far as fences go, I mean, I don't think we can require that a developer put up a privacy fence on the back of those lots. I mean, each lot owner wants to do it, they're just gonna do it.
Well, it's showing on his post-development map, those lots 1 through 13 draining into Henderson Bayou Road through a drainage servitude.
I'm sure through some kind of swale.
Well, it must be, yeah.
It's not draining off the back of the lot.
It's not a, can we have the developer come back up? Yeah, behind lots 1 through 13, is that just a swale that's going to drain to Henderson Bayou Road?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what it's gonna look like at the end of the day, and that's all gonna have to be reapproved as we go to construction plans.
Right.
But the water was gonna drain to the east and or to the west. You see the new pond that we have?
Well, you got some going to the retention pond.
Right.
But you got 13 lots going to
It's showing it going to Henderson Bayou.
Henderson Bayou.
Right.
Right.
It
You
won't
don't know
go,
whether
it won't go
that's
to
gonna
the
be-
south. It'll go to the
Right.
east, yeah.
So you don't know if that's going to be covered culverts or
It won't be
swale?
covered culverts, no.
It'll be a swale.
It'll be some sort of swale or,
Okay, and well, it looks like at half of those lots will drain
To the
toward the
front.
swale, and the front half will drain toward the
yeah.
pond view.
Am I speaking out of line to say that? I believe that's how we have it.
Yeah, it looks like you have a ridge.
Yeah, that'd be correct. But we'll look at this closer when the construction
Right.
plans come in to make sure that, everything balances out. They're not adding more water into the ditch that's not already going there at this time. But, yeah, it would probably be an open swell.
Okay.
And all of the concerns about the traffic, I thought I had printed it, I would have put it up here, but we addressed all those with Jason Taylor, and he replied back immediately saying, I'm good with these, these answers.
Regard to site distances and fences and stuff
Right,
like that?
right.
Okay.
With regards to sewer lift station, the oxidation pond at Keystone and Old Homestead, which is about 1,800 feet further up 933 toward Highway 44. Expanding that, it's going to have extra capacity to take all of the sewer from this subdivision. So all we're going to have is a lift station, which is a lot quieter, no smell, and that's going to be at the corner of Henderson Bayou and 933. And that'll be piped all the way up 933 to the Keystone plant.
All right.
So we just need to discuss how we feel about this density situation with that lot being considered in the 30 acres or not. And, I don't know, I feel like that's getting into semantics in some ways.
What are you saying, Josh?
I mean, just discuss whether or not, like with this density, with lot 50, I mean, that we're gonna include that in the 30 acres or not. I mean, if we decide not to include it in the 30 acres and it knocks them down to 88 lots. 88 lots, I'm saying that wrong. How many lots is it?
That would be right, it would be only 88.
Oh, it'd only be 88 lots.
You know, it's not like that lot is carved out and physically, removed from the rest of the development. It's
That
I
would
mean,
be
I
the
wouldn't want to
alternative.
see that with, 15 lots all around the subdivision done that way, but I think for one lot, it still comes pretty close to meeting all
That would be the
requirements.
alternative, it
Well-
seems, like you could
Well, but
carve
in
that
this,
one lot out.
this one particular
Really?
case, the
Yeah.
density will not be increased because the same amount of people will be living here. There'll be the same amount of houses, whether it fronts on one street or another. So, I mean, I understand not wanting to set a precedent, but it won't really change the density at all.
Like Donald said, I don't think it's gonna change, it's not gonna help our situation.
And there is a rational basis for leaving the driveway where it is.
Yeah.
I don't see that that's an issue that would cause us to reject the plat.
No, I agree.
Okay, well, do I have a motion? Or any more discussion? Well, okay, I have to reopen the public hearing. Can you, can you state your name and everything again? I know you already did, but,
Joey Blanchard,
all right.
Henderson Bayou. And just to get back on the drainage, I mean, I'd be more than glad for them to come out there and shoot some grades in my yard, but I've been living there since 1986. Where the property line is between Lot 2 and Lot 3, basically that drains to my backyard. I have a ditch on my southeast corner. It runs southeast towards Henderson Estates. That's where that water goes. So I don't see how you're gonna get Lot 13 to drain to Henderson Bayou. And if, I might as well use a little bit more time. I hear y'all arguing about Lot 50 over whether to put 88 and a half homes or 90 homes on 30 acres. Yet it sounds like you have no restrictions on how many or how big these detention areas are. You subtract these two ponds and these roads, sounds like you're putting about 90 homes on 20 acres.
I'm going to reclose this public hearing.
Well, personally, I'm okay with the density the way it is. I mean, I'm not sure whether or not the traffic impact study comments have been addressed or the drainage impact comments have been addressed. I don't know if that needs to still be a contingency. Do you guys feel like that needs to be part of a motion to approve or deny?
No, those have all been addressed.
So we wouldn't need to make that part of our motion?
Nope.
Then make a motion for approval, the preliminary plat as submitted.
50, maintaining.
As submitted, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I second the motion.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. I believe that was a second, Ken.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Staff report.
Did we do Dutchtown Meadows? Is that pulled?
Nope, that's
I think it's been pulled.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I want some more.
Planning staff does not have anything in their report.
Okay.
Engineering staff?
So the first thing that the Drainage Board would like us to take a look at is revising the ordinance so that we do design to a 25-year storm, and also to require the post-development outflow to be 25% less than what is currently flowing off the property. And so basically, they would just do this by having the detention pond, and the first stage of the detention pond would just, when it reaches the 10-year peak storm, it would let out only 75% of what was being let out in the pre-development condition. And then once that level is reached, then you'd have to have a freeboard in there so that the pond would also contain the 25-year storm and not let out more than what was let out in the 25-year storm in the pre-development condition.
It's a big
And
change.
Are you just controlling that by the size of the outlets?
basically, they can do it by the size of the outlet. You'd either have a couple different outlets, and once it reaches the 10-year peak, then you can have an additional outlet to let out more water. Or they can also, do it by V-notch weirs. And there are different engineering ways of dealing with that issue.
Do you think this would enlarge the size of the retention pond?
Yes, it probably would.
I was at the drainage meeting the other night, and when this came up, and it was presented by Bill Rue, and I appreciate why it's being done, and, you know, every, as we discussed earlier, every time a new subdivision is proposed, drainage is a concern, and I get that. But I think this would have a much greater impact on subdivisions than the new subdivision regulations we passed. I can't even imagine what this would do.
This is big changes.
I haven't had a chance to look at it in great detail, but this is a big change. Going from a 10 to a 25-year storm event and requiring only 75% of the runoff the pre-development runoff is a huge change. I'd like to hear from, I don't know whether Bill himself looked at this or he had other engineers, outside engineers look at it, the impacts of this, but I think the impacts would be pretty horrendous.
In terms of the cost of the development?
Yeah, I'm not sure, physically, I'm not sure it can even be done, and still create a subdivision. But I'm willing to be proven wrong, because I'm just going by my experience and my gut feel about this. But subdivisions, I'm not sure if any community in our area designs to a 25-year storm event, number one.
Right.
A 10-year storm event is typical. There may be some, but I'm not aware of them. 10-year storm event's pretty normal.
Yes, I'm not sure of this area. I know other places do have regulations. I mean, they have some that require up to the 100-year storm.
Yeah, maybe so. But I think this is a big change, and I think we have to look pretty carefully at this, because as much as screaming and yelling we got about changing the major subdivision regulations, we're going to get a lot more screaming and yelling about this. I think this is a bigger change than we think it is, or than it appears to be on the surface.
And I would like to hear what it's going to accomplish. Like, what are we looking as the end result? What is it going to improve? I don't know, downstream or based on,
Well, right now we require that a developer causes no harm. So
zero impact.
You develop a subdivision, you got a lot more impervious area, you can't have any more impact on the surrounding area than the pre-development phase. Now we're saying not only do you have to do that, but now you have to make it better than it was before, which, okay, that maybe that makes sense, but then combining that with having to handle a 25-year storm event as opposed to 10-year, it really piles it on.
It does. One of those alone would be a huge change.
Yeah, I'd like to know more about what that really would result in. When you take a subdivision that we looked at tonight, how would it change one of these subdivisions that we looked at tonight, the preliminary plats? I don't know who can look at that, but, I'm not really qualified to look at that, but I'd like to see how that would change what we looked at tonight. Maybe it's not as big a change as I anticipated it is, but it seems like it is.
Can you create freeboard? I know you can create it horizontally by making a much bigger pond, times a foot high, but you can create it vertically as well.
Only if you pump it out.
Well,
I mean, you
you
create
can
a
make
pump
it,
station.
you can make it underground,
Or
but it would
water
be very
table.
expensive.
or higher. I mean, we have
Oh,
dikes
water
everywhere.
table's so high, though. I mean,
Levees, whatever.
your volume on top of what the water table is,
If
it is what it
you're gonna
is.
Not expand it horizontally a lot, you have to have a pump system to pump out your volume, to give you enough storage capacity to handle a bigger storm event. Right now, we're handling between what, Matt and I both live in the same subdivision. We have, Matt knows, we have detention ponds there. And they're at a certain normal elevation. When we get a big rainfall event, those fill. And that storage is between where they normally are and where they get to, where they're allowed to get to, and before they begin running off. So they do their job. But if we increased in our subdivision, we increased that requirement to a 25-year storm event, number one, and that it'd be designed to that, number one, and we only let off 75% of the flow. that it was pre-development, I don't know if we'd have room
Take
for
away-
any houses.
Take away a third of your lots.
Yeah.
You would.
So can we have, I come talk to us?
Well,
Yeah.
Bill.
Yeah, I would like for,
So, yes,
Rue or
can
someone.
Mr. Rowe come and talk to us about it next meeting, or?
Well, maybe we can have, I mean, I'd love
Or
a
another
developer
engineer.
take a look at this and say, well, here, this is how this would impact the development I propose, or something like that.
Or a few engineers step up and see what they think it would help too. I
Right.
mean, just have a good discussion about it. I mean, I don't know
Have a
what the,
Public hearing.
yeah.
That's
Well,
good.
ultimately, I'm sure we.
So can we put that on the agenda to have a public hearing to discuss this item at our next meeting?
Yeah, this will be on the, a public hearing for next month.
Oh, that's the intention?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Don't we have to vote to put it on the agenda?
No, so this is, yeah, we're just introducing this. Oh, you have to, yeah, you do have to request the public.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I move that we have a public hearing at our next.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Okay. All right. Next item, anybody, anything? That's all with it? Okay. Have a motion to adjourn?
Oh.
I move.